minutes.
It's everything about the concept is what we don't do anymore. We don't just have conversations with people where there's not an agenda. Right?
It's like meeting a stranger in a parking lot or something, and then like, hey, you want to have coffee?
Yes. Oh, so how you doing? How's your day?
Exactly. Well, we are live here, Coffee with Humans, with my soon-to-be new friend, Christina. She's still actually a stranger. I only met her about 8 minutes ago. That's the essence of Coffee with Humans. Two people just bumping into each other randomly and then saying, hey, let's grab coffee. Before we got on the broadcast, I was thinking if we could have this discussion anywhere, where would that be? And I came up with we could be sitting in Iceland in a hot spring.
Lovely.
If you could have this discussion anywhere, where would it be for you?
Love this question. I'm stumped right now. I'm not really a beach person in terms of getting in with the aquatic life, but I do like to be near it and feel the breeze from it. Yeah. And so anywhere by a beach.
What drew you to clicking the button to have coffee with me?
Was searching and I found this one and it grabbed me, it pulled me in, and it just seemed, your podcast and Coffee with Humans seemed very welcoming, that you were really eager and enjoyed just making meaningful connections.
Coffee with Humans is like Sunday brunch.
I love Sunday brunch.
Okay, good. Because, well, you're in the right place. Only There's no food. We are live here once again with Coffee with Humans, where we meet with a stranger today and become friends. Jacqueline, welcome to Coffee with Humans, my new friend.
Hi, it's so great to be here with you. Even though I don't drink coffee, so I'm probably going to have warm lemon water. I hope that's okay with you.
Warm lemon water is totally fine. People have asked before they signed up, they've sent these like almost like scared messages saying, can I please? I mean, I don't drink coffee. Like, yes, it's not the specificity of coffee. It's the act of getting together with somebody in this moment to share the journey, right? And make life better.
I love that. It's all about connecting.
That's totally true. Yes, absolutely. Well, I got to get one thing out of the way here. I know that you're not near me, and I've done no research on you. So I'm in Northern Illinois. Whereabouts in the world are you?
So I am in beautiful Beverly Hills, where the sun is shining, the stars shine bright, and dreams really do come true.
Wow, that is quite the intro for Beverly Hills.
Well, I'm producing a show, and that's kind of part of it, so I'm practicing. Okay,
I'm gonna have to figure out what the intro would be for Rockford, Illinois. It wouldn't be where the dreams. I don't even know what I would say. I'm not a hater, but
you'll come up with it later.
Yes, it's just not Beverly Hills. I know that. There's a certain panache that Beverly Hills has had through the years, and I've actually never been to Beverly Hills.
Really? Well, that one must be on your to-do list.
Yeah, I've been to 30-something other states, but I have made it to the Northwest, and I've never made it to the South, kind of the Southwest area of the United States.
Interesting. That's surprising because it seems like California is a big sort of, travel destination for a lot of people. They want to see either San Diego or Los Angeles or Hollywood, So I'm surprised.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm happy that you chose to join me. I am curious though, what inspired you to click the button to have coffee with me?
Well, I am just really loving this whole podcast world and connecting with people from all walks of life. I like the title, the concept, Coffee with Humans. And that sounds social. And I'm a social butterfly, well, virtually anyways these days. So I'm like, I'm going to go have some coffee over there. So it sounded good.
All right. So is this idea of social butterfly and your show that you're producing, what is this show about? Does this have something to do with social butterflyism? I don't even know what to call it.
So I'm founder and editor-in-chief of Beverly Hills Magazine, and I'm actually producing Beverly Hills Magazine TV for the screen. So I'm bringing all the elements to the screen. So now instead of just reading about the latest Lamborghini, I'm going to take audiences with me into the ultimate luxury lifestyle, the world of the rich and famous, and we're going to take a test drive in that Lamborghini and bring them into a real interactive experience. Where I get to host the show and the world will be my playground. So I'm just very excited,
That sounds very exciting. That reminds me, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Who was the guy who had that show for like 20 years or whatever it was?
Robin Leach, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Robin Leach, and welcome.
That's right. Yeah, I guess it will be sort of a modern Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
That was a popular show. I watched it.
Yeah, I think almost everybody did. Super popular.
Yeah, well, you I mean, to your credit, I think that you would make a good Robin Leach replacement. The thing about Robin Leach is he had an accent, and that made him sound really smart.
Well, yeah, that's true. So actually, I'm from South Africa, so maybe I should bring the South African accent back. Let me try. Welcome to Beverly Hills. This is I'm doing the Robin Leach thing. I'll just have to be natural.
Yeah. So South Africa. What brought you to Beverly Hills? That's a trip.
Yeah, well, okay. So my parents actually moved us from South Africa to San Diego. That was where we originally landed in 1993. See, here's my accent coming out a little bit. But yeah, my parents were deciding between San Diego or I believe it was Portugal at the time. And they chose San Diego because the climate was most similar. So. Okay. But really to pursue the American dream, to escape political instability, which was going on at the time in the country. And I'm just grateful that we're here. And I am really blessed to be able to say that I am truly living the American dream. It is alive and well, everyone. So yeah, got to pursue your dreams. Yes.
Wow. That's a hearty kind of statement to say you are living the American dream. I know a lot of people who think that the American dream is maybe dead or never existed. I don't know. It's a sort of it seems like it's up in the air for a lot of people.
Well, most certainly during these times, which have been unusual to say the least, and. But, I'm an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. He always instilled in me the mindset that, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And I also always believed in God, so I believed that God was there helping me on my side. So I believed in the impossible, right? And actually, I lived by the scripture, Matthew 19:26, with God, all things are possible. But this magazine wasn't my first magazine. It's actually my third magazine. I attempted to start 2 magazines prior to this one, and both failed miserably. Okay, so I've had my share of failures, believe me. I've had some very big pieces of humble pie, which I think are absolutely necessary on anyone's journey of life because they teach us, they build our character that is necessary to prepare us for true success. Because I can say there could be no ego in true success because it's always about service to others. But I bring that up because in my moments of failure, when I actually realized my inability to make my own dreams come true, I wanted with all my might to have a successful magazine, but I couldn't do it. I landed flat on my face, broke as a joke at my parents' house with literally $0. Okay. And there's no shame in that because what I learned is when you realize you don't need anything, you actually realize you already have everything you need. Because in my moment of failure, I cried out to God. I finally surrendered and asked God to help me. I prayed a prayer of repentance. I said, Lord, if I've done anything wrong, please forgive me, help me. I can't do this. I need your help. Like I genuinely, sincerely needed divine assistance. Okay. And you know what? He met me in that place, Jason. The Spirit of God sort of took over and I felt this comfort and this presence. And I just really committed to seeking God's guidance. Because I knew I didn't have the wisdom because I tried, and God has been guiding my life ever since. And that's what I teach people. And that's why I've written a book, The 7 Oracles of Success, the spiritual secrets to success, how to live your dream life through your relationship with God, because he has literally taught me every step of the way and given me all the wisdom to build the business, Beverly Hills Magazine, which was a gift of God in itself. I never dreamed I would own a world famous brand publication, but when I submitted to God and cried to God, he put it on my heart to look it up. and the trademark was available. You guys, like, are you kidding? So I knew this was going to be a tremendous walk of faith because I didn't have the resources. I mean, again, I had zero money. Like, what?
Right.
But he's been faithful, and I have stayed faithful, and I've really developed a really strong prayer life, and I fast. Like, I just finished a 40-hour fast. No food or drink, because fasting actually draws us closer to God and lets us hear God's spirit more clearly. And I know my story is very unusual. I mean, it's not of some woman who's like some hotshot and she's figured it out and made all the right decisions. No. I actually made all the wrong decisions. The only right decision I made was actually repenting and crying out to God and seeking his guidance and instruction. And I got born again. I got baptized and started reading God's word. And actually, his word says that it is not within man to direct his own life, which means, you guys, we actually don't have the wisdom or the faculty to direct our lives on the right path that would lead us to make all the right decisions to bring forth the full manifestation of our dream life. And I know I've taken the mic here, but let me just clarify one thing. When I speak of your dream life, I'm talking about your greatest heart's desires fulfilled, you guys. Utilizing the gifts and talents that you were born with, that God created you with. There's free will and there's God's will, and you can't have both. But God's will for us, you guys, God's will for you is your dream life. Like, Jason, if I had known this, I would have surrendered to God a lot sooner and saved myself so much heartbreak and a lot of money and a lot of time and pain, really. I mean, we put ourselves through so much suffering and frustration because in our own pride, we try to do it ourselves and figure it out. And really, we're just trying to make money when that's the way of the world. God is like, listen, you guys, hello, come to me, delight yourself in me, and I'll give you the desires of your heart. That's one of God's promises. So clearly, I'm a born-again Christian, if you haven't noticed, but I'm just a living testimony that God is true and God is real and his word is true and he loves us and he's got a great plan for us. And that's why I'm living my dream life. Woohoo!
Well, yeah. So this is good. We're gonna have to pause you there, or we're gonna have to take up an offering soon because. Or an altar call. I don't even know what's one or the other.
Both is fine.
So you said something right out of the gate. You're like, I ended up in my parents' house with nothing, and then you qualified. You put a little statement there. Said there's no shame in that. And I'm curious when you discovered there was no shame in that.
Yeah, that's such a good question, Jay. It's been through this journey in my relationship with God that he's taught me to self-love, because we do have so much self-criticism and so much insecurity that we don't realize actually holds us back. But see, God's love is perfect love and it's true love. And as we draw nearer to him, he sort of heals all those wounds and allows us to embrace those things we feel are our shortcomings, and then our weaknesses that we perceive to be weaknesses actually become our strengths, and we grow and blossom into the fullness of who we were always created to be. And it is in this becoming your true self, in the presence of God, in the relationship you have with God, that all the shame and the guilt and the things of the past fall away, and then you have a renewed perspective on things. And that's how I learned that there's no shame in our journeys and our failures and the things that we actually have to go through in order to learn, as painful as some of those experiences can be, because I learned that God will use any means necessary to draw you near to him. And even if it means breaking your heart, because I went through such heartbreak, but it wasn't until I actually got cornered in a position of total failure and brokenness that I called to him, and that's his whole will for all of us, is to just go to him, because he's got a wonderful plan and purpose for each and every one of us. And we're so silly for not wanting to seek the fulfillment of that through our relationship with him, because it's wonderful, you know, and it's beautiful. And that is where we find our personal fulfillment, which we're all seeking.
Right. A couple of things come to my mind as you're kind of talking about your journey and you know, letting us in a bit. Yeah. One is this idea of, you know, your true self and loving yourself and that type of stuff. I use the example of I went hiking for about a summer. We lived out in an RV, my wife and kids, and we lived out in an RV for a month and a half or 2 months, something like that, for a summer. And I wore sandals most of that summer. And I came back with the craziest, just like some calluses built up on those feet. Uh-huh. And the question was posed to me, hey, do you want to go get a pedicure? And I was like, sure, I'll get a pedicure. Why not? So I go, you know, I'm sitting there, never, you know, it's the first pedicure of my life. And and the lady's just like doing whatever she's doing with my feet. And I said, hey, when are you going to cut those calluses off? And she looked at me with the weird look. She's like, we don't do that. I was like, what do you mean you don't do that? Like, how is that going to come off? Right. And she says, well, we're just going to file it down a little bit. She says, but you're just going to then take care of your feet and the callus is going to come off. Like, you just get into a better habit, a daily habit of caring for yourself.
Right,
and you won't have that callus built up. And I feel like the idea of like finding oneself, you know, which is a common phrase now, it is that foot that just it's been used, it's been worn, it's been on a journey, and all sorts of things have been built up to keep the real, true, alive foot safe. That's all it's there for. And if we lose the habits of self-care, of just like the way the world works, like how are we taking care of ourselves, how are we taking care of each other, and when we lose those habits, then the calluses tend to build up in ways that are like, wow, that's kind of funky. And then we are offered an opportunity to begin taking better care. And sometimes trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, something like that comes along, intense struggle, and like takes part of it and just like, hacks at it. And then other times we just have to get ourselves in a better spiritual, physical, emotional habit. And then we find like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm supposed to feel like. That's what a foot is supposed to look like. And I feel like the excess stuff that gets built up is just an effect of life. And we eventually come to the point where we're like, I got to do something about that. And clearly you did.
Well, you hope that you would come to that point. A lot of people don't. See, God created a duality in existence, okay? So there's male and female, there's night and day, there's light and darkness, there's good and evil, okay? And God says that we are lights in the world. But the thing is, there's so much darkness that can cloud and dim our light, and that darkness can be anger, bitterness, jealousy, what we would term sins, right? So they sort of, they dim our light. But when you go to God, right, and you seek God and you seek a relationship with him, he shines his pure light into our lives and into our hearts and sort of brightens our countenance and helps us to forgive and to forget and to loose from our souls the anger and bitterness and unforgiveness and all those things that darken our world and our beings. And we can then shine more brightly. And the closer we draw to God, the more bright we shine and the more we can live in the light of God's presence. You know, I say I've danced with the devil and played in the dark, but there's no greater love than the light of our God. And that's what it's about, you know. And this also applies sort of to success and becoming your true self and reaching your potential, because you know the world says that success is, oh, you have a good looking spouse, a nice car, big house, some money in the bank, and boom, you're a success. No. That's so backward, you guys. And I actually seek to redefine what success is in my book, The 7 Oracles of Success. But success is becoming who God created you to be. You yourself are the seed of success that needs to be nurtured and nourished and cultivated in order to grow and blossom and thrive into the fullness of who you are always destined to become, But this can only be achieved in your relationship with God, because the flower doesn't bloom and grow without the light and the nourishment of the sun. And when I speak of God, I speak of Jesus Christ, the living God who came, became man, taught us the way of righteousness and the nature and personality of God, so that we can be like him, because that's really his will for all of us. And God is love, you guys. God is wonderful. And he helps us to really cast off all the darkness and all the evil things that would really hinder us from becoming who we were all destined to be,
Yeah.
in light.
Well, I years ago, I made a, I don't know, a photo, I guess, and printed a photo, and I put on the word success on the bottom. And for whatever reason, I said, still waters when my sun goes down. And it was a picture of my happy place. It's northern Wisconsin, a lake. I've been there every year of my life, really.
Lovely.
And as as evening is coming, the sun's going down. It's casting across the water, and there's no waves. There's no, it's just still. There's no wind. It's just this stillness. And in my mind, and I was a young guy at the time. I'm probably still young, depending on who you ask. But
we're all God's children. We're all kids.
I was a much younger guy, right?
Yeah,
totally. And it was just very clear to me that regardless of all the stuff that could occur, that would occur, and I'm a go-getter, like I'm push a lot of times, and I've learned to back off of that to some degree.
Yeah.
But when either the literal sun goes down on the day, or the figurative sun goes down on my life, it's just like, let there just be a stillness, regardless of what has happened throughout the day. Let it come back to stillness in the evening. And that's, to me, I think that's a lot of success, because the rest of it, I mean, I bought a car. I mean, you're in Beverly Hills, you're talking about Lamborghinis and that type of stuff. And years ago, I was privileged through some business stuff to pay cash for a really nice car. And my kids were very impressed. My 2 boys,
Nice.
they were very impressed. And I was like, there was a
being
reason
a role
for it.
model as dad, yeah.
And there were tax reasons for it and all sorts of stuff why I did it and all. And I wanted a nice car, right? And I thought, well, there's a utility to it as well. And I told the boys at one point in time, I was like, guys, it's just metal and plastic. At the end of the day, it's just metal and plastic. So I'd like it to be used for something more than just, showing off. And there's nothing wrong with, working hard and owning nice things. But when it's just working hard and owning nice things, and that's what the thing is, that's fleeting.
Oh, 100%.
And now I've got that same car, and it's got electrical problems. Somebody cracked the exhaust manifold on it not all that long ago, like a bad mechanic. The dealer blew out the XM radio when they were changing the battery. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna have to get rid of it anyhow.
Well, exactly.
And that's how, and it's only a span of a handful of years. And that I think is, where do you make your investment in something that's long-term, in something that does build, and creates more value than just stuff. Even economically. I mean, the COVID just taught us that the world economy is kind of a joke. I mean, we can actually shut it down and just print money. Ta-da! Who knew? Like, right?
Well,
then what do you do?
I really think that this whole lockdown thing was God's way of sending all of us to our room in a timeout. And saying, you guys need to really reflect on your lives and come back to what's important, which is family and unity and really bringing back the family values, which is God's heart. We are all God's children. He's our Father. And so that's his intention for us. And I think a lot of people have had a renewed understanding of their values and sort of reprioritize their lives because of this experience. But also, I think God wanted us to really draw near to him, during this time and to seek our spiritual fulfillment. Because you're right, the material things are absolutely meaningless. We take nothing with us when we depart. Our flesh returns to dust, but our spirits live forever, you guys. And so it's important that we put our spiritual growth first, because that's where true riches lie. And that's where the conception of the manifestation of your dream life begins. It's in your spiritual growth, your spiritual relationship with your creator, where you can actually align with him and have a relationship, a communication with God, where he's guiding you, he's leading you, he's teaching you every step of the way into fulfillment of your purpose and destiny. Okay, I'm talking about eternal stuff here, reasons we were sent here, reasons we were created. This is what matters. You see, it's not money or the material things so much that are evil. It's the love of those things that are evil and cause us much sorrow and pain, and that where men go astray, and
Right.
veer from the path of faith that God teaches us not to, because they are meaningless. We are spiritual beings having a temporary earthly experience. Again, everything here is gonna rot. It's gonna rot and rust, and it's temporal. So we must really turn our attention to the eternal spiritual essence of our lives. And that needs to be our priority. And from that place, from your intimacy in your relationship with God, your prayer life, you're seeking him, you're wanting to know his word. The Bible is the word of God. Hello. It's the only truth on the planet. But I'm saying this to tell you this, is from that place is the manifestation of everything you could ever desire, because God will give it to you.
So let's talk about purpose, because I think people on a search for purpose, and that's another big thing we got going on right now too. And I think some of it is self-created, because we are only about 2 generations off of or into a culture. It's largely Western phenomenon, but a culture where we have it pretty good. Like, our basic needs are by and large met, and we're told to continually focus on ourselves over and over. Like, continue to go to school, get a good job, go get a career, put off having families because you want to focus on yourself. Focus on yourself. What do you get at? Even to the point of like, what am I getting out of this relationship? I'm not sure what I'm getting.
Instead so selfish.
Because we haven't had a whole lot of struggle, and because struggle has a way of reprioritizing things into like, I'm just going to double down and go do my thing. My grandfather he at one point in time sold, he was a bread truck driver, like people like, what's a bread truck? Right. He never complained about it. I never heard him talk bad about it at all. And he lived a comfortable life with my grandma, and it was never a thing like, I wonder if we're reaching our best selves. I wonder if we're hitting our maximal existence. It was never this kind of stuff, because they had dealt with, they had struggles to get over in their lives as they were growing up, and their parents had gone through, the depression and all this other stuff. And that's, I think this idea of finding purpose is a little bit overrated, because if we just do something and do it well, there's sort of a natural alignment of purpose, because like you talk about, if I think there's the verse, there's man makes his plans, but God directs his steps. So, we can have all these plans, but if we just take care of habitually, if we take care of today with good habits, we have a tendency to, we will move into purpose, which is not to say we don't make plans. We do make plans for sure. But we take care of today, and the plans tend to unfold, whether they unfold into, quote unquote failure, like you're talking about, or whether they unfold into great success. If we take care of today, we learn the lessons, we move through it, and experience some level of pleasure and peace in our existence.
So real quick, will you accept my request to the Coffee with Humans? I'd like to share it on Facebook, the public group. But okay, to answer your question, or to respond, it's man makes his plans, but the Lord directs his steps. And what's so interesting about that is, though, the more we actually acknowledge God, Jason, the more we seek intimate relationship and communication with him, the more closely we align with our purpose. The more we can have a greater impact in this world, like a ripple effect. They call it the butterfly effect. All of our actions, all of our thoughts, words, and deeds have a butterfly effect. That's why we must always really seek the sort of highway of holiness, the righteous way, so that we're always sending out a butterfly effect of goodness and of love.
I feel like to some degree we're not in charge of the butterfly effect. I think the if we're taking care of our world, the butterfly effect is not our responsibility. And here's why I say that. I've often got into gridlock, in mental gridlock, considering the outcomes. Like, if I do this, here's the outcome. It's almost like playing life as a chess game. Mm-hmm. Only that's not what we get. We only get today. And there are healthy habits, healthy ways of taking care of today, which then also build a better tomorrow. And getting into that gridlock, for me at least, for getting into that gridlock of considering all the outcomes is too much. It's like, okay, now I'm exhausted trying to figure out what decision I make today based on the numerous outcomes that could possibly occur.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting concept. And this is why, I'm also a firm believer in angels and demons. There are forces that we can't see that do have an influence on our decisions. We're either being tempted by the devil on our shoulder or being guided by the angel. And depending on who we're listening to will steer our behaviors and decisions and the things we do, which will in fact affect the butterfly effect, because we see people listening to the devil, performing violence and heinous acts, and that is just perpetuating evil, right? But then we see people who are making righteous decisions and doing charity and things like that are actually making the world a better place. So we do have a great responsibility because we do have a free will. So we all every day are faced with decisions that we have to make that are going to impact for good or evil, right? But why I stress the importance of actually seeking God and having a powerful prayer life is because you're going to be led more powerfully, more clearly by the Spirit of God, who's always going to lead you on righteous paths, who's always going to lead you in the path for your good and the good of the greater whole. You see, that's God's will for us, because God is love. So the more we veer away from, I don't need God, I don't need to pray, all of that stuff, then we start getting tempted and onto paths of darkness that just perpetuate the anger, the jealousy, the resentment, the bitterness, the hate, and all those things that cause darkness to close in on us, But the more we all go to God, the more the lights of God can guide us all, and we can all live in the light of God's presence and love. And really bring heaven to earth, because that's what heaven is. Heaven is a world free from all the darkness and evil. And heaven is a real world. It's just like earth, but it doesn't have death, decay. It's a real place, you guys, and we can experience and taste of heaven on earth the closer we draw to God.
So how does this play off in your upcoming magazine, or is it already launched, the Beverly Hills magazine?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
People always ask me that, like, oh, you're such a Christian, but you like are in the lap of luxury. Like, how does that balance? Like, you're in the mecca of, vanity and materialism.
Well, there's vanity and hedonism tend to be equated to luxury, and I don't think the two have to be that way.
That's true.
I mean, that verse that people often misquote, that money is the root of all evil, is actually misquoted. So money is a root of all sorts of evil, or all kinds of evil, which is similar to say, like, meat, eating meat, is the source of some health issues. Like, it's
right.
not that you just,
it says
it's not that you swear off of
money. It's the
Right.
love of money, you guys. People when you genuinely love money, okay, and I'm talking about like the evil, like you will lie, cheat, steal, and people kill for money. Like, it really. Okay.
Sure.
But when you recognize, when you're completely detached, and that's why I fast and I pray, because it allows me to walk in the spirit, not in the flesh. The flesh is tempted by the lusts and cares about the material things of the world, because it's trying to satisfy the lusts of the flesh. But when you bring your flesh into submission to the spirit through denying the flesh by fasting, you actually walk in the spirit. So you're detached from the lust of the flesh. And this is how I'm able to be in the midst of the lap of luxury without any lust for it, because my heart's desire is fulfilling God's will for my life. And this is why he's aligned me with my spiritual purpose, which is to create the God Foundation. So I have, in fact, launched a charitable outreach ministry where we support orphanages in third world countries. And I have been giving most of my own profit to orphanages, because the Lord has taught me, you guys, the principle of it is greater, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And this is a financial, spiritual law of God that we must all understand, because this is what keeps the financial prosperity in my life flowing. As I make money, the more money I give away, the more God grows my business. So it's like, you have to learn to not hoard and to want to, hold on to your money. Give, and God says, give, and it'll be given unto you. God says, whoever gives to the poor lends to the Lord, and he'll repay you. So even in the beginning, when I had no money and I was just starting to build the online magazine, God was teaching me this. And he would teach me to give. And all I had to give was articles. Like, oh, I could write a story, an article about your business. So I'd love to feature you as a business leader. God just cultivated in me this character of giving, because God says he loves a cheerful giver. But with it comes a reward, a blessing, because again, like, there's no lack in God's kingdom. Okay. He created everything, and God says, I can cause all grace to flow unto you, to abound unto you. So you have all sufficiency for every good work, so we must really be generous, and you'll see God just gives. It's just wonderful how I see this prosperity and financial prosperity, spiritual law at work in my life. It's so interesting, but it's real, and God says also in Malachi 3:10 and 11, bring the full tithe into my kingdom, meaning support the ministry, support the poor and the orphans, because God says pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is to visit orphans in their affliction and widows, and to keep yourself unspotted from the world, which means, to be purified from sin. And it's just amazing how God's word is so true. And when you actually live it, you guys, everything becomes possible for you, because that's what God says. For those who believe, all things are possible. So I'm just a living testimony of it. I'm a true Christian, you guys. I will live forever. And God says, I have come to give you life, and life more abundantly. So that means not only do we have the promise of eternal life in our relationship with the Lord, but abundant life here and now. There's a lie that says, oh, you're a Christian, you have to be poor. That is so not true. That's such a deception. If you actually read the Bible from cover to cover, the Word of God, it is the history of God's relationship with man, and how he interacted with men on earth and people who actually had a real relationship with him. And God always prospered them and protected them. You know, even if they weren't necessarily millionaires with stocks, piles of cash, God always supplied their need. And God is doing the same for me supernaturally. He'll do the same for each and every one of us, you guys. God doesn't, there's no favoritism with him. He loves us all equally, and he's got a good plan for each and every one of us. We just got to go to him.
So I'll put this in front of you and see what you think. So I've done a lot of stuff in personally and professionally. So I've done music stuff. I've done recording. I've published some songs. I've launched a handful of businesses. I've sold some businesses. I've failed countless numbers of times. I've also had some pretty good successes. I've written a ton of code. I do advising. I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and advised them through the years. I have over 300 or 400 live streams that I've done. I've hosted multiple podcasts. I've got a lot of stuff that I've done. I've traveled the world to teach. So there's a difference that I've noticed in myself. It's a change I made, which was instead of pushing, like push, and feeling like there's like, well, if I just push a little harder in this direction, even though my gut says, no, that's not working, this isn't working. Right. I would instead of, I would push instead of look for places I get pulled through, and resting for a moment and saying, what's working, cut out all the things that are not working, and just go back to the things that are working and continue to take care of those each day. What's working today, take care of that today. And what I've noticed is that by doing that, there's a much simpler life to be found and a much more fulfilling life to be found, which is not less successful. I wouldn't say it's more successful, financially or whatever, but it's not less successful. But it is holistically, it feels more present with life rather than, like here's a stupid example. I launched a magazine once. It's not a stupid example. It's actually a pretty good example, but launched the magazine once. And I launched it because I had a sales guy who was I had hired a sales guy to try and sell, our services to, we had a whole range of services, and he was not doing a good job. Not at all. And the answer really was cut the guy because he's not able to sell. Instead, I thought, what he needs? He needs something simpler to sell. And so in my ability to dream and create, I went, what he needs? He needs a magazine so he could sell one little thing, and I'll train him and figure out how this fits in the process and all this other stuff, which was crazy town because nobody asked for a magazine. He couldn't sell it because he was a bad sales guy. And I thought that I was going to be able to fix him being a bad sales guy by giving him a new tool. Not true. And I knew that in the back of my head, but I was just like, I'm going to figure out one more way to make it work, one more way to make it work, one more way to make it work, versus just saying, what, this isn't working, cut it off. Let's relax for a minute. Let's look around and figure out what is working. And even COVID, COVID was a great opportunity to just cut the things that aren't working. It was a good excuse to say, this isn't working for either for life or for business or whatever it is. Go with the gut, because I also do believe, I'm a person of faith. I do believe that my gut is pretty attuned when I listen to it, to attune to what I need and want, and attune and if I'm practicing good disciplines, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, then where I'm getting the pull through in my life also happens to align with wherever God's taking me. And then every day, and every day I look for evidence of that. And if I get particularly lost or down the dumps, I go, okay, where's the evidence of that? Like I need something today to know where the evidence is at. And also I feel that pull through in a particular, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do more of that. I'm going to walk down that road. That's part of why Coffee with Humans exists. It was an idea in my mind. It satisfied a need. I thought it satisfied a need in the world. I did it in the most basic of ways. It got pull through, and I've just been adding production stuff on top of it. And, viewership, listenership, everything goes up. And And it plays to my strengths too in a lot of different areas. How does it fit in? I've got dreams, I've got ideas, and I just take care of it day to day.
So you see, a lot of people, again, are stuck in the paradigm of the world's idea of success, right? Mm-hmm. So they're chasing the dollar. Money right. is their God. So they're going to a 9-to-5 job, or they're hustling and trying to create businesses out of thirst for money. Hopefully, it'll make a lot of money, yada, yada, yada. But you mentioned a stillness and the peace. Mm-hmm. And God says, be still and know that I am God. And we rest in peace now, you guys.
Right.
Not when the body returns to dust, because when we get to heaven, believe me, there's a whole adventurous life in heaven, okay? There's lots of wonderful things we're going to be doing for eternity when we get to heaven, okay? We're not just going to be floating in the clouds, but because heaven's a real world, all right? You're going to use all your gifts and talents, but we're going to be like supernatural beings. But the point is that we rest in God's peace now. And when I say, one of my quotes is, what did I say? I say, don't chase anything but your dreams, because that which is for you will come to you. So God wants us to rest in his peace with him now. And it's from this place of resting and stillness where we actually can hear clearly the guidance. And God created us with the intuition, which is really our ability to tune into God's voice. And this is why fasting for spiritual purposes, fasting to seek God's guidance is so imperative. Because like I said, there's free will and there's God's will. Listen, you can go off in 100 million different directions in your own free will and bang your head against the wall however many times you want, but until you actually seek God's will and his guidance and instruction, he will lead you on the right path to fulfillment of all of your dreams. You'll save yourself so much time, frustration, heartache, money, all those things, if you actually just seek God. And I have done that. And he's literally given me step-by-step instruction. God, I also have prophetic dreams every night, vivid dreams. God literally tells me what to do and what not to do. I have surrendered my will to God's will. You guys, I'm not in control of my life. And this is the whole point of being truly reconciled back to God, is to fulfill his will for you. Okay. And we can only do that by actually, surrendering our pride and humbling ourselves and seeking and heeding his instruction. I would never have known how to build this magazine to the point where it would actually be making money, where I barely have to touch the wheel and it's growing and growing and growing. Plus the vision for the whole business plan that God has given me, that's just going to be tremendously successful if I continue to heed his guidance and implement and apply everything God is teaching me. That's all I've done. I've humbled myself, you guys, and he has a wonderful plan in business for the fulfillment of your heart's desires. Okay. Like you mentioned, you've got dreams. We all have dreams. We were created with dreams and talents and gifts to utilize and share and contribute to the world. Most of the time they display themselves when we're children. So if you haven't yet discovered what that is, or you're sort of confused or not sure, you've sort of lost your way or clarity, reflect on your childhood. What did I love to do? What did I want to be? If you could do something and not get paid for it, but do it forever and you have all your needs met, what would it be? That's your dream. And you've got to pursue your dream. But don't do it alone. Do it with God. Jesus will help you. That's the whole point. He wants to hold our hand. And what's so amazing is he will supernaturally bring all the right people. He'll open the right doors. It was amazing. And God continues to blow my mind, Jason. I had a little prayer whisper in my heart, oh my gosh, I need to learn SEO, search engine optimization. I had no idea how to build a content magazine to get on, the first page of Google. I had zero idea, zero experience. I'm telling you, I started from absolutely nothing, knowing nothing. And like a week later, I get an email, and lo and behold, it's a woman who's an SEO expert, and she's so generous and willing to give. She gave, like, my learning curve was accelerated because God lined up that alignment. It's called divine alignment, strategic connections that only God can bring, you guys. So I'm talking about a supernatural life and a supernatural journey of success where you actually are being guided by God, our creator, and he's leading your paths to fulfillment of your heart's desire and your purpose and destiny. This is way beyond material success. It's spiritual success, you guys. This is why we are here, to fulfill our destiny and purpose. And in it is the manifestation of your dream life, because God's will for you is your dream life.
Well, I agree with you. I think wrapping it back into the title that we talked about early on, because we met, for our viewers and listeners, I just met Jacqueline an hour ago.
Yeah.
And before we got on the broadcast, we did a couple tech checks, and we named this talk today based on whatever was stirring in the air.
Right.
And so, I don't know where it's going to head. She maybe didn't know where it's going to head either, but that's the essence of getting people together. And I think it is a pretty spiritual opportunity when people get together with the intent of making the world a better place. Yeah. We have the capacity to do that. And it's actually probably our responsibility and authority to do it as well. Absolutely. So living your dream life, you talk about it as a very spiritual, from a very spiritual component, which is, it's super important, right? I mean, apart from our minds and our emotions, our physicality, a lot of people neglect the spiritual life, but we can't disconnect from that because we are these holistic beings. So people can follow up with you at that website, JacquelineMaddison.com.
Yeah, visit my website, JacquelineMaddison.com, JacquelineMaddison.com. You can check out the magazine if you want to go subscribe, or just visit the website and read some cool luxury content. You can visit the God Foundation, where there's tremendous spiritual resources, a wealth of wisdom in the spiritual growth column, or the truth and wisdom column, you guys, to grow in your relationship with God and your knowledge of the truth. There's also oracles, where I've received in my time of prayer and intimacy with the Lord, just words of wisdom and insights from heaven that will also just sort of bring enlightenment to your understanding, so that we can all grow in our spiritual growth, you guys. That's what it's all about. We are all God's children. We're all here to grow and to learn in love and to fulfill our spiritual destinies and purpose. So I'm praying for all of you. I love you. You remember, with God, all things are possible. Take that leap of faith, but take it with God. He's always with you. He'll never leave you or forsake you. So I pray you do. And I just am so grateful for this time to connect with you, Jason. It's been such an honor. I really appreciate it.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much for joining me. To our viewers and listeners, Coffee with Humans is candid, live conversations with strangers who become friends, making the world a better place. Catch us on YouTube, subscribe and share. And again, check out Jacqueline Maddison at JacquelineMaddison.com, and we'll catch you next time.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls.
This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates, or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.